Can Africa come together as one nation in order for us to defeat the power of the Western?
Yes, I think Africa at this time, we've reached a point that we can in fact come together. We can in fact put Africa into our hands and develop it. I think the debate is changing, and it is a matter of time that Africa, one of these days, is going to be different. Who are problematic? I think Western countries are. We are still arguing what we are arguing about here because of the Western countries. Why can't they go and sit where they are? If they want to buy something here, we sell it to them. Why should they take our stuff, have it, sell it to us, do everything? Why? It is too late. They should have done a long time ago. Because it is wrong. Why are the forces of a French country are stationed in Africa, in the country of somebody else? Why? It's because they think they are our fathers. And I think that time has come. We cannot longer wait for that. That is part of the problem we have. Part of the problem we have. Why should a country threaten countries in Africa as if he's talking to the small boys? You can't do this, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Don't you see something wrong there? Why? Because a country should do what it wants to do. Why can't we have peace that people who live in their own, they must be allowed to live wherever they are? If they've got resources, they must sell their resources to enrich their countries. Why should be some little small countries being more powerful and everything against other people in other countries? From slavery to being colonized. Colonization, what it meant? It actually meant the big countries take small countries, just take them. You are now my country. That's why we ended up with colonies, something funny. And they were going to sit with us forever because they think we are not sufficient human beings. It's not true. We need to fight forever, liberate ourselves. Our own wealth is enriching countries out there whilst we are being starved where it is dug from. It cannot be allowed. We are all human beings. There's nobody who has more eyes and more noses and more mouths. We are the same. Why can't we have the same respect? Africa is an important continent which must still jump higher to reach its real position. Gaddafi was killed because his country was beginning to say Africa must stand on its own and live in its own life. And for that, because he was talking like that, he had to be killed by the civilized Christian kind of people when he had committed no crime, except to talk about Africa, our country. Just before Gaddafi was killed, I was the last president who went to his country. I went there to talk to him when NATO was bombarding that country. In fact, I was given instructions as the president of this country that you fly this way, you lower your revolver, and people come from Europe tell us in Africa, and we are in charge. That tells you the story of this continent. At the end, he was killed because he was very clear about Africa. And the Western countries did not want it, and they killed him. That's a reality we have.
What can Africans do in order for them to become a united nation of Africa? What can Africa do in order for them to be united as one nation? What can Africa do in order for us to have one army, one currency, and one passport which can allow us to circulate all over around Africa continent in order for us to develop our economy, in order for us to develop our beautiful continent which called Africa? Well, former President of Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, had given a very powerful interview where he get to talk about global matters, especially what is happening in Africa continent. You get to discuss about what is happened in Sahel regions with the 3 military leaders who have revolted the whole entire Sahel regions by start kicking out the Westerns with their military base. Jacob Zuma salutes what Ibrahim Taore is doing so far in order for the people of Africa to be aware that Africa needs to be united. Jacob Zuma, he called Africans to listen to this message and be united in order for us to stand together and defeat our former colonial. He said a lot, but I don't want to say much. I want you to first to pay attention to what Jacob Zuma have to say in his interview. Then I'll be back with more analysis before I get to give you my thoughts.
I think ever since France came to colonize Africa, it has never made it better. If I talk about France, where this statement comes from. When France was decolonizing, they decided to leave the army, a powerful army, in any place that they were, in order to suppress them if they did anything. That was not thing for us to say thank you, because they did not do what they were supposed to do. They decided that the resources, money, will be determined in France on behalf of the Africans who were freed here. I don't know what France thinks about it. We should have said thank you very much to take our money and use it there and have the soldiers. This is what has led to the recent coups. So it's a wrong statement. I don't agree with it because it has not helped us. The thing that says we are helping you or whatever, not helping us, does not agree that we are free, we do what we want. People who have just conducted coup d'etats recently, because they say we can't have our money in France. We can't have the soldiers from France here when we have got our own. That in itself tells you the man is just talking. He does not know how black people have suffered from white people, particularly the French. So I don't even want to debate that one, because it would take me to debate things that are too far. I'm busy dealing with the situation here, with the British in particular.
But I just want to stay a little bit with regards to France. Chad, I'm sure you agree with the statement that they've said, claiming that Macron is insulting the intelligence of African countries by insinuating that they are ungrateful. I'm sure you agree with that statement.
Of course, yes. I'm agreeing. I did not want to get into the details. I just wanted to say that fellow is wrong. We have suffered since they colonized us up to this day. That's what I was saying. In other words, I was answering the question that it is part of what whites think about us.
I'm sure you also agree with Senegal and Ivory Coast's decision to withdraw the troops, French troops in their regions. I'm
Absolutely,
sure you do.
I agree totally. In fact, it is too late. They should have done a long time ago, because it is wrong. Why are the forces of a French country are stationed in Africa, in the country of somebody else? Why? It's because they think they're our fathers. And I think that time has come. We cannot longer wait for that.
So you're saying Africa should be seen as a powerful continent that can call the shots for themselves?
It is a powerful continent, only disturbed by the colonizers who are still colonizing us in a modern way they think we cannot see. For an example, we stay in Africa. Africa has lost a lot of its resources taken by people from Europe, and they still take them today. It's as if God said, you live in your area, but you go to Africa to take what you want. There are companies, huge companies from outside of Africa who own the resources under the earth. It doesn't belong to them.
Resources that are in Africa.
Exactly. And they never bought it. But they are taking it every day. Africa is worse. That's why they take everything they want from Africa. Why can't we have peace that people who live in their own, they must be allowed to live wherever they are? If they've got resources, they must sell their resources to enrich their countries. Why should be some little small countries being more powerful and everything against other people in other countries? Why is the situation of peace that we talk about and ending war that we talk about, why can't it exist? Why can't we not succeed to stop the wars and everything? Who are problematic? I think Western countries are. We are still arguing what we are arguing about here because of the Western countries. Why can't they go and sit where they are? If they want to buy something here, we sell it to them. Why should they take our stuff, have it, sell it to us, do everything? Why? Was this law made by God? No. Man-made. Why? Why can't we be allowed to live where we are in the manner in which we want? If you want to have relations with them, have relations. Why should these relations be imposed to other people?
Speaking about Mr. Donald Trump, he has recently made threats against BRICS members or BRICS heads, I should say, and particularly South Africa, threatening them to impose tariff hikes if they continue their relations with countries like Russia and China. When you hear such threats from the West on Africa and how it conducts its business and how, like you say, deals with its resources with other countries, what do you think when you hear those threats?
That is part of the problem we have. Part of the problem we have. Why should a country threaten countries in Africa as if it's talking to the small boys? You can't do this, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Don't you see something wrong there? Why? Because a country should do what it wants to do. Whoever says so, that is a problem I have been talking about all the time. Because you have a country with its own resources and everything, which says these countries are my little ones. You can do this with somebody else, we are going to be in trouble. Why? There is totally something wrong in the manner in which big countries treat the countries that are small, the countries that are said to be probably not as big as whatever. Why should that happen? Why should a person threaten you when you take your own decisions to have relations with some people? Then you must be taken into some problems. Why should that be the case? I don't think we need that. This is what we are saying as Africans. We don't need, you know, when South Africa joined BRICS, we haven't talked about those matters. It was very important was, among other things, was to deal with this very issue.
The governments of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have accused Ukraine of arming rebels in the Sahel region in particular. Do you think that the international community is reacting to such a move or these allegations against Kiev that they are allegedly training rebels in the Sahel region?
And of course, I don't have the facts about that, but I could just make some comment about this business. You know, we in Africa, we were slaved. Serious, where human beings were sold as an article of commerce, where many people were killed in many ways, where people were bought and the person would do whatever he wants about the person, kill, whatever. There was a fight against slavery. When the slavery system was stopped, finally the whites realized it was too much. With us, they then put something with a name that is a little bit, we remember, colonization. I don't know what it means. We're colonized. From slavery to colonize, to being colonized. Colonization, what it meant? It actually meant the big countries take small countries, just take them. You are now my country. That's why we ended up with colonies, something funny. And they were going to sit with us forever. You are in English, but we are in English also in South Africa, and it's whatever around it. We then decided to start fighting for our liberation, which we did. In other countries, they did not want, like in South Africa, they didn't. They thought they were here to stay, blah, blah, blah. Where that ended to? Ended in a situation where we went to ask the Western countries to help us fight our oppressors here. They actually said it to us, to the ANC in particular. We are not going to train you to go back and kill our cousins and our people, whites. And therefore, sorry. That's what led to us going to the socialist countries who were ready to help us. And it was the help from the socialist countries that made us to be at least recognized that we could have guns and shoot and defeat, and we liberated ourselves. In some cases, when they realized this is what we're doing, you know what they did? No, we can't govern. You don't know how to govern. So we're going to give you what we call self-government to test you whether you can run a country. And by then, they were entrenching their own methods of keeping us under them. Like as we were asking the question at the beginning about the French. In fact, French went further, as I said, because they kept the money there, everything, because they think we are not sufficient human beings. I'm saying this because we face a very one-sided world. Those who are white in color have everything. Those who are not white, they must suffer. That is the problem we're faced with. That's a problem. And therefore you hear big people here talking about telling you every other thing, as if they molded us to become what we are, and therefore we belong to them. It's not true. We need to fight forever, liberate ourselves. Our own wealth is enriching countries out there whilst we are being starved where it is dug from. It's not a an innocent thing that when we all are human beings, you happen to be at a corner where you have everything, you must then be a target. I believe if you talk about these countries in Africa saying, or even in the Middle East, we now want to join BRICS, I think people are becoming aware that we can, in fact, equal the world. And we can only do so if we are able to see the truth to what is being done. We can't be made like almost semi-human beings when others are full human beings. I think that time has passed. We are living in a world which is lopsided. It cannot be allowed. We are all human beings. There's nobody who has more eyes and more noses and more mouths. We are the same. Why can't we have the same respect to all of us?
Do you think African countries are taken seriously when they come about with some solutions for these conflicts?
Well, I don't know whether I need to talk about that kind of thing, because what I've said is a broader behavior of the world. It's not correct. It's not. Then, because they're big countries, blah, blah, blah. Then we have African continent, which is taken as being owned by countries from outside of Africa, which has leaders, some of which are so weak that I wouldn't want to say anything. Even if they go, it's just a visit. Because we are talking about people I haven't heard really dealing with the serious issues of the continent or the world. If people are still avoiding discussing the truth about what needs to be done, and then go there just to go. Because I believe that if there was an issue, we wanted to go there, we must go there honestly, and we must be able to say the wrong is wrong.
Do you think that African countries are taken seriously when it comes to their input in resolutions for conflicts?
I think to some degree, at times they are. Again, it will depend. What are the conflicts? Well, there are conflicts that big countries believe it is only them who must say something. Other people, yes, unless they are under pressure. So some are taken, but not the majority of them. And it's a pity because, as I believe, Africa is an important continent which must still jump higher to reach its real position. Because Africa has many, many things that other countries outside of Africa need. That's the reason why they were able to risk the seas to come to Africa, because they got to know that Africa has everything. But it was precisely because of that Africans were put into a place where they should not be taken very serious. Because if you have been colonized and you are still indirectly colonized, you are still a weaker factor. So that goes together with your input that you make. Is it taken serious? Because if they feel, for an example, no, we don't want this, they will do so. If they want to come and attack you, they will kill and attack you. I'm sure, just to make it more clearer what I'm saying, Gaddafi was killed because his country was beginning to say Africa must stand on its own and live in its own life. And for that, because he was talking like that, he had to be killed by civilized Christian kind of people. when he has committed no crime, except to talk about Africa, our country.
Do you think Africa has what it takes to be independent then? You spoke about slavery, colonization, and still being indirectly colonized through the systems and what is actually happening in the African continent. Do you think Africa can stand on its own and stand up against big bullies, as some have put it, against countries like America that can make threats, against countries like Europe that have come in to use some of our resources?
As I said, it depends what type of an issue or of a situation we're talking about.
Economically.
Whether economically or otherwise. Once the Western countries feel these ones now are becoming too big for their size, they will come in, and they've done so in Africa, came in on a number of times. Just before Gaddafi was killed, I was the last president who went to his country. I went there to talk to him when NATO was bombarding that country. In fact, I was given instructions as the president of this country that you fly this way, you lower your level. And people come from Europe, tell us in Africa, you are in charge, that tells you the story of this continent. At the end, he was killed because he was very clear about Africa. And the Western countries did not want it, and they killed him. That's the reality we have.
You were recently in Ghana, and there are many developments that are happening in the African continent. Look at what's happening in Mozambique, for example. You speak of Gaddafi, who you say was killed because of his view about Africa and wanting it to stand on its own. With your political experience, Mr. Zuma, and given the fact that you now have this MK party, which is the third biggest political party in South Africa, do you think Africa would be able to come together and stand together? We've seen what is happening in the Sahel region, for example.
Yes, I think Africa at this time, we've reached a point that we can in fact come together. We can in fact put Africa into our hands and develop it. The obstacle is the big countries, former colonizers in particular.
The West.
The West. Who would want to keep Africa down so that they are able to benefit from Africa, to control Africa? What is left is that Africa should come together, and it's better to have a country, Africa, under our control, with our resources in our hands. You cannot, if you look at the history of Africa, try to argue that Africa is good, blah, 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 when you have countries that are still calling themselves mother body countries. It's a difficult part, it's a difficult thing. I think Africa has reached the point. As you said, I was in Ghana. I think the discussion that we had with the leadership in Ghana is a kind of a discussion that has not happened in the past. The manner in which we see Africa, how we want Africa to be under its control, how Africa must benefit from the riches of the continent. I think the debate is changing, and it is a matter of time that Africa, one of these days, is going to be different. Let me just make the point here. When the former colonizing countries were faced with the issue of how to control Africa, they then concocted what was called coup d'etats, wherein they will plan wise in their countries how to remove the leaders in Africa so that they put their own puppets. It took a long time. As a result, what is called a coup d'etat was hated, because how do you take such good leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, and there are many others? But it was initiated by the colonizers. They will buy people so that people are able to kill their brothers for their own interests. You know what has happened now? There are few coup d'etats that have just happened. As a result of that kind of coup d'etats that happen, people today don't see the difference between those coup d'etats and this one. But the coup d'etats that have taken place now are saying to France, enough is enough. Take your
Troops.
Your troops, our money must be here. If we were not misled, we would not be saying we cannot take these people as ours because it's a coup d'etat. It's just a name. They don't understand. These young people are saying enough is enough. That tells you where Africa is going. We are saying let that belongs to Africa to come and remain in Africa. And it's correct. What has been done is absolutely correct. Why should the French forces be sitting in Africa? Why should the money be brought from France to feed us when we've got our own? That tells you that the car is turning the corner. It is a reality, it is there. I have a clear understanding of what is happening. The coups of today are not like the coups which were defeating the end of Africa, processed by Europeans. It's a coup d'etat of the Africans defending themselves, taking themselves out of the kind of what these colonies have done to us. But some of us, we don't see it. We still want to put them away. They're doing the wrong thing, blah, blah, blah. No, they are actually taking the struggle to liberate Africa again. And me, I support it, I can tell you. Unless it is a kind of a coup d'etat like the ones before. These ones are saying, let Africa look after itself. Simple.
You've enticed me there with your visit to Ghana, saying that there were discussions that are moving towards this idea of Africa strengthening itself. Do you want to give us a little bit of those discussions and the future?
No, I'm just talking about the discussions in general. I don't think I'm talking about the details. I'm talking about that we as Africans, we are now saying time has come for us to rule our countries. Time has come for us to have our resources looking after the African people, belonging to them, who want to buy gold here and silver and everything, must buy, must not take our resources here and go and do it and come and sell it for us. That's what we are saying. There must be real understanding and equality and everything you can talk about. That's what we are talking about. And that's why I'm saying Africa is turning a corner.
Mutual beneficial relations.
Absolutely.
Alright guys, now that we are all in the same page after watching the interview of the former president of the Republic of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma, who had given this powerful interview, which is a very strong message to most of Africans all over around the world, whether it is inside Africa continent, even in diaspora. Let us now have a conversation. Jacob Zuma, he first started talking about what the president of France, Emmanuel Macron, have said against the African nations. Well, we have said it before on how Emmanuel Macron had insulted and said bad words against African countries for the fact that they have kicked France out. Emmanuel Macron was very clear in his words when he said that African countries or African leaders are so ungrateful.
I think we forgot to say thank you. It does not matter. It will come with time. Ungratefulness, I am well placed to know it. It is a non-transmissible disease to man. And I say this for all African governors who did not have the courage, vis their public opinions, to wear it. None of them would be with a sovereign country today if the French army had not deployed in this region.
So Jacob Zuma, who had also to give his point of view on this part, and he was very clear when he had to remind Emmanuel Macron that if there is any country between Africans and France that is ungrateful, that should be France. He even have to elaborate more by saying that France have not done nothing to Africans. Instead, what France have done to Africans so far for all these years is to make Africans suffer even more. It is to continue looting from African minerals. It's to continue controlling African economy. That's what France have done to African countries. France have not done nothing. This is something which almost everyone reproached Emmanuel Macron on his words that he said against African nations. Because Emmanuel Macron, when he was saying all these things, he perhaps thought that these words won't have impact on Africans. Perhaps he thought that these words, Africans will take it lightly. He forgot maybe that Africans are not aware of the history of what France have done in Africa or of what Africans have done in France. Through these same words of Emmanuel Macron, it is what end up motivating Ibrahim Taore to come even more harsh on Emmanuel Macron by telling him that
this is a lesson that Emmanuel Macron has given to the leaders of African states to catch up and to be able to really fight against imperialism. In addition to that, he also insulted all Africans in his words. There is a part that caught my attention where he spoke of ingratitude. And that ingratitude is a disease that is not transmissible to humans. He is human. Our ingratitude is not transmissible to him. This is how this gentleman sees Africa, sees Africans. We are not humans in his eyes. Maybe he is the one who is not human. He does not put himself in the class of humans. But if he has good ingratitude, it is him. I think that if he is not an atheist and he prays every morning when he wakes up and prays, he should also pray for Africans. Because it is thanks to our ancestors that there is today a France. He should pray for us. In his eyes, we should not be humans. We are more than humans. These are very strong messages that he sends. I cry for the French people, but still he is good for Africa. He is a necessary evil for us. Those who want to wake up, wake up.
France, it has nothing good that they have done to Africans. And instead, France and French people, they should be the one praying to Africans. After praying to God, they should be worshipping Africans, because France, it is what it is today. All because of Africa continent. There is no doubt about that. Prof. Lumumba once said that if the African countries stop France from using their mineral resources, cut all the ties against France, well, 20 years it is too much. France will be left without nothing. France will be nothing in the world. These words are not a joke, because many people have said the same thing, including even the former president of France, Jacques Chirac. He once said that we should not be biting the hand that feed us, because who we are today, all thanks to France. When you are saying that, He was very clear about that. But another part which former President Jacob Zuma had to comment, it was the which has to do with what is going on in Palestine, while we also the Gaza, the ceasefire deal in Gaza.
With Mr. Donald Trump, President-elect, the President of America, do you think his presidency will see about a shift in policies related to these ongoing wars, which includes the Hamas and Israel conflict?
I think the president of the United States of America has said something with regard to the war in Russia. Right? Very clear. I haven't heard him about the country we are referring to, whether there has been a clear thing that there must be the end of battles all over. However, he is one among the few who have said something that makes sense. I think he said, we cannot use our money to fight a war in Russia when we've got it to building our country. There are not many who have said so, but he have said it. We take note of that because it is important. But as to the battles in the Middle East and the United States, I don't think I've heard very distinctly that there is somebody there who says this thing must come to an end.
I want to go back to the issue of Palestine because it's an issue that the ANC that you claim to have been part of from a young age is an ANC that has strongly supported Palestine. Now, when you look at the recent developments now in relation to the ceasefire agreement, do you think it's going to last? Given the fact that obviously South Africa has been a supporter of Gaza, do you think that this particular ceasefire agreement will hold?
I hope it should hold. But for me, it's a one-sided the manner in which it has been done. Not like the first or the last. Many times it has happened in the Middle East. Middle East, the things are always very complex and difficult. If we were to have equal understanding of how we should live among one another, there wouldn't be wars like that in what caused the wars. There are reasons as well. Part of the reason Africa is suppressed up to now is because of its wealth it has. And I'm sure in the Middle East, maybe they will also have something. I'm sure they do. Don't you know?
Are you suggesting?
They've got oil,
Yeah.
a lot of oil. And that's why there are issues. The issues are provoked by the fact that others want to take from others what belongs to them. And they utilize their power to do so. It is unfortunate. Some of the agreements that are there are forced, like the one that now we're talking about, that we've got to have the ceasefire, is forced in reality. For an example, the whole world looked at a country in the Middle East where buildings were bombed, small kids were killed, and the world, the civilized world, absolutely said nothing. Nothing. Even now, they are forcing other people to say they must accept the manner in which they present their story, how they must all come together. This is a problem that has faced the black people and also the people in the Middle East. That issue has never been resolved. Whether you have the United Nations, it has failed to deal with these matters. It's a fact. And therefore, I don't want to say, well, a nice man has spoken there, because they all talk around their own area of satisfaction. They're not worried about anybody else. And if you argue, they force you, they kill you. We are not yet right in this globe. Not yet right in this globe.
Between Israel and Palestine, recently, just before the US President Donald Trump get to sworn in. And this deal, according to us here, we had said again that there's nothing good will come out of this. Thanks God, Jacob Zuma came also and confirmed the same thing about this so-called deal, that there's nothing good will come out of it, because you can just tell the intention. Whenever these people are coming with their deals and try to talk to people about this deal, there's not anyone who come and try to specify, to come and try to clarify things in a good way, whereby people they can say that, okay, if what deal is being signed, there is no another nation who will wake up tomorrow to go and attack a so-called another nation. But unfortunately, this deal they are telling it, you can just tell that this is just a temporary ceasefire deal between Gaza and Israel, because sooner or later we're still gonna have again another problem over there. We're still gonna see more drama which will have to take place. And this time he had to go far by saying that, look, even Donald Trump himself, when before even his own in, when he was talking about this so-called Gaza deal, there's not any specific closure or proposal which is being put on the table. And the truth here, whether we like it or not, it is that when Jacob Zuma was saying this, he was trying to tell you guys exactly what we said before, that there is a lot of money which is being invested in the Middle East. Most of these billionaires in the US borders, they have invested in the Middle East because of all the petrol which is over there. And they are the one who get to support, send their should I say their military weapons companies. They are the one who get to have the tenders over there. They supply Israel with different things. So if the peace have to reign between these two nations, obviously these companies will go broke. And if they go broke, it will affect the economy of the USA in one way or other. And that is the reason why they are doing all this. So former President Jacob Zuma, him mentioning this point, he was very right on that. There's nothing good which will come out from all this thing. But he finished his words by calling Africans to be united. Jacob Zuma called for the unity of Africans. The unity of Africans, it has become the top topic in the agenda of Africans all over around the world, because Africans have come to realize that without the unity of Africa continent, without the unity of Africans, these people will continue penetrating us, they'll continue looting our mineral resources, they'll continue controlling us. As I always tell you, that they pretend to leave Africans. They pretend to give Africans this so-called freedom, physically, but not morally. They leave African free, physically, but not economically. So they have shifted their body far from Africa continent, but their mind, their leadership is still within Africa borders. That is the reason why you find that they are the one who get to decide who have to become the president in African countries. They are the one who get to nominate who can be in charge of everything. And if you don't have their blessings, you become like their enemy number one. Proof to that, when inside the regions, Ibrahim Taore, Burkina Faso, the military government in Mali, Chad, Niger, the list is too long. These countries, as they were busy revolting themselves against the Western, we saw the Western standing up, saying that no, we're not going to let these people to be there. What they usually do, they'll jump in the front line, they'll call for these nations to go ahead and give back power to civilians, because they know that through civilians, they'll be able to manipulate their own candidates to take over power. That's why you guys will saw almost all the elections that is taking place in Africa continent, there will always be that one political party which have to come and contest against the results. Like what you are seeing recently, currently I mean to say, in Mozambique. Why? Because the person that people get to vote is not the one who will come and exercise power. Why? Because it will happen that this Western will be the one who has to come with their own candidate. The candidate they know that is gonna be at their service, and they'll impose this candidate against the will of people of these countries, against the will of people of Mozambique. And that's why you guys see there's a lot of prostate all over in each and every election that takes place in Africa continent. They've been doing this for so many years because they have left Africa physically, but they're still controlling Africa even from far, because they know that them imposing their puppet president as the head of the state, they'll be able to have each and every tenders as they wish. They'll be able to be there to control each and every contract. That's what they've been doing all these years. Now Africans, they have now come to realize this kind of game, that no, these people are taking advantage of us because we don't speak one language, because we are not united, because we don't love one another, because we don't support each other. And through this division that we are having among ourselves, it is what drives them. It is what makes them become stronger to defeat us. It is what made them to keep on controlling our own mineral resource that's supposed to be benefiting us and developing our countries. Yet, it does not do nothing. Look in Sahel. They are among in the position of the world, the most poorest countries. Sahel regions, there are 183 positions. Most of countries that are so poor, out of 188 countries around the world. You can see the difference. Now look the kind of mineral resource that comes from this part of Africa. Look at this mineral, what it does to the Western country. Niger, they have uranium. Do you know what uranium does? Or do you have any idea on what uranium plays as a role in the world, especially in the nuclear facilities? This semi-nucleus, it is what helped France to hold up their schools, their home during the winter time. It plays a very big role in the Western countries. Yet, people of Niger, they are suffering. They are having so many unemployment because these minerals, someone comes and collects it, go make use of it, and at the end of the day, they come to give you a pin. It is something which Africans, they have started now opening up their eyes. So when President Jacob Zuma was being asked this question, he was left without no choice than for him to give his thoughts about it, to tell people of Africa that, are you standing with Ibrahim Taore and these other leaders in Sahel regions who have stood and said no to France and said no to British and America, or are you in their favor of are you in the favor of the Western? So Jacob Zuma is Pan-African, as someone who had fought so much during the apartheid regime in exile in order to liberate people of South Africa. He knows very well that as long Africa were not free, which means South Africa, they are not also free. So if South Africans we want to be free, then we need first to help other African countries. We need first to come united. We need first to put our ideas together, put our mind together, put our efforts together in order for us to defeat the former colonial. So Jacob Zuma have to come and confirm that again, saying that we need to be united. Africans should consider this as the rightful time for us to come together as one nation. I love the sound of that, because that is even the purpose why we have this platform. It is for the unity of Africans. It is for us to preach this gospel about the unity of Africans. Guys, you don't know what can the unity of Africans do to this Western. Let me try to tell you some of the facts. You know, once we become once we become united, okay, as Africans, France won't come and go in Togo, for an example, and try to impose their nonsense over there. Because once they will do that, the government of Togo, they'll kick them out immediately. And once they do that, they try to force themselves, like the way they try to threaten up the government of Niger, saying that no, if you guys don't do this, we are going to invade Niger. Well, they will see not only people of Niger coming on their way, but they will see the entire Africa standing on their way. Why? Because it will be like if you poke one nation, if you attack one nation in Africa continent, well, you are attacking the entire Africans, because they will come very hard on you. For an example, Emmanuel Macron, the current president of France, he went in media and disrespect African nations. And he was referring Sahel regions in the western part of Africa, where there is a Burkina Faso, where there is a Ivory Coast, where there is a Chad, where there is a Nigeria, our brothers and sisters over there, right? He went and said all those nonsense he said over there. Did you see the reactions of Africans all over around the world? Do you see any Africans who try to isolate himself and say that no, by the way, yes, I might be an African, but this does not concern me. Let them deal among themselves. No. Emmanuel Macron get being criticized by every African, so whether it is within African borders or whether it is in diasporas. They criticize him. They defend this, our brothers and sisters over the Sahel regions. Why? Because you attack one nation of Africans. You must know that you are attacking the entire Africa continent. That is the kind of unity of Africa we are talking about. When we're talking about the unity of Africans, some people think that no, it is all about you having some foreigners, as they like to call them, or foreigners that will be coming here, or the foreigners will be doing this. And who says that them they are foreigners and you are not a foreigner? If you consider yourself as the citizen, well, you should consider them also as a citizen, because remember, we are all coming from the same womb. We are all the same children from the same father, and our mother is Africa continent. So when we're talking about the unity of Africans, it does not mean that no people from Niger, they'll be leaving Niger and going live somewhere there in Sudan, and they just go there and just live there. No, they'll be visiting wherever they want to visit more freely. They'll be there to defend one another. They'll be there to criticize what is wrong. See what our African leaders they've been doing wrong. If we are not united, who's gonna have the courage to criticize this kind of behaviors? But if we are united, once our African leader misbehave, we are all going to stand against him and tell him the truth that step aside, because we don't need this kind of leadership in Africa continent. And you will have to listen, him or her, they will have to listen to our message and step aside. The unit of Africa that we are talking about, it is us, for example, having one currency, whereby we can say forsake to the US dollar and remain among ourselves, to start trading among ourselves with our own currency, which we have to depend on our own currency. And do you know how powerful African currency to be having impact? Because the US dollar today, they are having this big impact. It's because it is a monetary which is being used all over Africa continent. When Kenya want to trade with Uganda, they trade in the US dollar instead of them trading in one of the local currency or maybe one African currency. Why did they kill Muammar Gaddafi? Isn't it for the same reason? Because Gaddafi have raised up a point of view on how Africans should be having one currency. But just because they know very well that African having one currency, it will destroy our economy. We'll be doomed. We won't be able to live. We won't be able to tell them to do things. We won't even be able to impose our sanctions on them. They had to kill Muammar Gaddafi because of that. Let us not forget the history. Look at what Yoweri Museveni and Uganda they are going through today. They have put serious sanctions against Uganda. All just Yoweri Museveni had said no to these things of a gender mix, to these things of a man sleeping with another man or a woman sleeping with another woman. Because they are the one who comes and want to impose these things on us. If you accept to this kind of nonsense, well, you must know that you are welcome in their world. They'll sponsor you, they'll give you money, they'll do this, anything you want, they'll give you. Because it is these dark spirits which they want to impose to all the countries around the world, especially in Africa continent. When Yoweri Museveni refused that, they had to cut all this. They put sanction on Uganda. Google does not trade over there. MasterCard, they put all this kind of ads against Uganda. Why? Because we are not united. But if we were united, I don't think these sanctions, it was going to have this big impact on Ugandans to the point of that the government of Uganda start now neglecting even the refugees which are over there. They are now running out of the food, and the government said that they don't have food to give them anymore. Why? Again, because we are not united. But if we were united, this sanction, it was not going to have impact not only on Uganda but on any other African nations. It was not going to have impact. Because what is giving these people power? It is because we trade with their currency. We use their money. We go there to go and borrow money over there. And when we borrow the money, tomorrow they will come and want to take even more from us. But if we stop not taking money from them, if we have our own currency, we say that this is African currency, do you think the United States of America will have power to come and impose their so-called sanctions on Africans? Do you think the Western will come and impose their leadership in Africa continent? I don't think so. Why? Because the unit of Africa, it is the only weapon we are left with in order for us to defeat all these people, in order for us to destroy their strategies. So when President Jacob Zuma spoke about the unity of Africa, me as Pan-Africans, I believe that is something which is supposed to be celebrated, and we salute him for that, because that is the reason why we have created this platform, so that we can preach the gospel about the unity of Africans. It is only that way we will be able to develop our African continent. It is only that way we will be able to create even more jobs and fight against unemployment in Africa continent. It is only that way we will be able to stop calling each other foreigners. Yes, it is only that way we will stop to making other African brothers and sisters to travel all over, leaving their countries to come in South Africa or maybe to go somewhere, all because they are looking the green pastures. That is the only way we can try to stop all these kind of things. because the economy is going to be growing up all over. Instead of someone leaving their country to come and live in your country, they'll instead come and do business and go back to their country, continue doing other activities. The day we will understand that, then that is the day we can say that yes, the unity of black people, it is very important. Because in order for us to even get to that point, we first need to change our mentality. Our mentality, guys, is what is killing us. Because when we're busy talking about the unity of Africans, some people are outside, they're insulting us. Some people are outside, they are looking at Jacob Zuma, they are looking at this one. What is he talking about? Some people, they are out there calling us names. Forgetting that, no, we need to change that kind of mentality. We need to see the good side of the unity of Africans. So, the message of Jacob Zuma in this part, it was very important, and that is something which needed to be celebrated. Guys, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this video until now. Jacob Zuma called for the unity of Africans. Jacob Zuma support Ibrahim Taore. Well, that's what he had to say. But you, when you listen to his message, what do you have to say? So feel free to drop us your comment in the comment section. Tell us also what you think about this. Above all, give us your thumbs up, like this video in your numbers. We'll really do appreciate that. But don't